Hi, welcome to Street Priest Ministries. I'm your host, Brother Jay, as we're taking the gospel back to the streets. Today's drive-through message is the Book of Jubilees. And we're going to pick up where we left off. This is part 3. Paradise in the fall. So we're going to pick up there. And on the 6 days of the 7th week, we brought according to the word of God unto Adam all the beasts and all the cattle and all the birds and everything that moveth on the earth. Now you done heard me teach on Genesis and Adam and Eve. Get the series, Adam and Eve series, several times in different ways. All the beasts and all that moveth on the earth and everything that moveth in the water according to their kinds. Their seed, their specific species. See, man is taking and splicing genes and playing with, trying to play God down here. And crossbreeding animals and genetic creating monsters. But God made it very specific. Everything after his seed and after his kind. That's God's laws. That's what they were doing during the Atlantean period. The reason God, he said the earth, he called that polluting the earth. And including man and animals and mixing man and animals and everything else. That's pollution. God wiped them out. Giants, your angels and men. That's where you got the giants from, fallen angels. All this crossbreeding going on. God was not with it. And he wiped the world out in the flood. Spared Noah and his family. But as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. It's going to be the same thing going on there. Got these wicked scientists that's in the occult, the Church of Satan, doing the same thing. You're going to bring back monsters. Genetically impure monsters. According to the, what was it at? Everything after its kind. On the 2nd day, the birds on the 3rd day, and all that moveth on the earth on the 4th day, and that which moveth in the water on the 5th day. And Adam named all them by their respective names. Now, can you imagine how much time that would take to name everything on earth? Adam named everything that was on earth. But he was alone and found no helpmeet for him. He didn't have a mate for him. And the Lord said, and all the animals are busy mating, humping and stuff, and here's Adam sitting up there by himself and alone. Now you see why he bit the apple. He said, I ain't going through this again. And why he followed the woman and bit the apple, I should be specific. And on these 5 days, Adam saw all these, in male and female, according to every kind that was on earth. But he was alone. He said, what about me? God, I got no bait. I ain't got nobody to cuddle with. Look at these animals. And the Lord said, it is not good that man should be alone. Let us make and help meet for him. And the Lord our God caused a deep sleep to fall upon him. And he slept, the first surgery. And he took for the woman one rib from amongst his ribs. And his rib was the origin of the woman. So woman, you come from Adam's rib. Origin of the woman he made from his ribs. And he built up the flesh in its stead. God closed the womb up, closed the flesh up that he used to take stitched him up God's way. Probably didn't leave a stitch though, I'm sure. There are no marks or nothing. And built the woman, but this is the first surgery. And he awakened Adam out of his sleep. Came out of his coma God put him in. And on wakening, he arose on the 6th day. And he brought her to him. And he knew her. And said unto her, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Now, God, this was the first marriage. God, marriage between man and a woman. Make that very clear. Called nature. Get my teaching. Adam and Eve. Nature versus the serpent. Where I go into depth in that. But anyway, this is the first marriage. God the Father brought Adam his wife. So marriage is sacred and holy to God. The two should become one. One flesh. That's why Satan attacks the family structure so much. He hates the family. He hates the earthly family. That's why he tries to pervert it and pollute it. And got man and woman at war with one another. That's all Satan's doing. Anyway, it wasn't so with God. It says they should be one. And he awakened and Adam out of his sleep. Okay, and he knew her. Now, knew her ain't to know you like, how you doing? Let me shake your hand. He had intercourse with her. And they became one. Thought I'd make that clear. And said unto her, that consummated marriage, by the way. You know that. You could get married. And if you guys never have sex or sleep together, it's not considered, even by law, consummated. A sealed deal. That's what constitutes a marriage. That's why God, it was sacred to him. We weren't supposed to be having adultery or fornicating. It was supposed to be one man, one woman, and in the beginning, a virgin. And that was the only man that this woman was supposed to know was her husband for life. One man she slept with. That was God's original plan, and them two was to become one. That's the mystery of marriage. Not a man having many wives or polygamy. That wasn't in God's plan. Or a woman sleeping with many men, known as a whore. That wasn't in God's plan. It was one man and one woman for life. She was supposed to be his first, and him her first. And then was them two first together for life. And that's what was to keep the fire going. Those two between just nobody else. Was the share in that matrimony. That was God's original plan for man. And he awakened. Oh, I read it. And he said, this is my wife. This is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She will be called my wife, because she was taken from her husband. Therefore shall man and wife be one. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother. How many men these days leave their parents? Sleeping on the couch there, or in the basement. They will get out on their own and provide their own place for a wife to come to. They got to move into the parents' house. Or vice versa. Therefore shall a man give my teaching. I taught on under the Adam and Eve series what the name husband means, wife means, what we trace the etymological root meanings of the word. You can look that teaching up. His wife and mother and cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. In the first week was Adam created, and the rib his wife. In the second week he showed her unto him. And for this reason the commandment was given to him to keep in their defilement. For a male 7 days, and for a female twice 7 days, 14 days. And after Adam had completed 40 days in the land where he had been created, he brought unto him, we brought him unto the Garden of Eden to till and keep it. But his wife they brought in the 80th day. And after this she entered into the Garden of Eden. And for this reason the commandment is written on the heavenly tables in regard to her that giveth birth. If she beareth a male, she shall remain in her uncleanness 7 days, according to the first week of days, and 3 days shall she remain in the blood of her purifying. So she's not to have sex for 40 days, and after bearing a child, and shall not touch any hollow thing, nor enter into the sanctuary, because of the blood, until she accomplish these days, which are enjoined in the case of a male child. But in the case of a female child, she remain in her uncleanness 2 weeks of days according to the first 2 weeks, and 60 days in the blood of her purification. So you get more time if it's a girl than if it's a boy. And will be in all 80 days. So it's double the time. Went from 40 to 80. And when she had completed these 80 days, we brought her into the Garden of Eden. For it is holier than all the earth besides, and every tree that is planted in it is holy. Therefore, there was ordained regarding her who beareth a male or a female child, the statute of those days which he should not, which he should touch. For the male or female child is accomplished. No hollow, that she should touch no hollow thing, nor enter into the sanctuary until these days for male and female child are accomplished. This is the law of the testimony, which was written down for Israel, in order that they should observe all the days. And in the first week of the first Jubilee, Adam and Eve, pay close attention, this is God's calendar, the Jubilee calendar. And also this has to do metaphorically with ages. Just like in the feast of the feast that God gave Moses. Same thing. Those weren't just the feast days for them to keep within their lifetime, but those were also dealing with ages that was to come, feast days, on a different clock, dealing with thousands of years. Okay, in the first week of Jubilee, Adam and his wife were in the Garden of Eden for 7 years, tilling and keeping it. And we gave him work, and we instructed him to do everything that is suitable for tillage. And he tilled the garden, and was naked, and knew it not. So man and woman were naked in this Garden of Eden, and didn't even know it. They didn't realize. They was wearing their birthday suits. And you got people trying to return to that with the nudist colonies, camps, and beaches and everything. But that was then. This is now. After man's fall, what did the clothing come in? And he tilled the land and was naked and knew it not, and was not ashamed. And he protected the garden from the birds and the beasts and the cattle, and gathered its fruit and ate. So he was a defender of this garden, which garden in the literal, guard Eden, is where it comes from. And guarding always was a center of pleasure, of worship. Also in the most ancient of texts, it meant the heart of God, where you find God. God would come and commune with Adam in the evening, as we read in Genesis. So this garden was a very special place of worship. No different than probably equivalent now would be the church, where God shows up to praise Him and worship Him. It's supposed to be a house of prayer and worship. Church and turn everything but that. But that's another subject. Those that follow Street Breeze know how I feel about that. Anyway, that's what God intended. Same with this garden. Now, he was to protect the garden from the birds, the beasts, the animals. And he was to work. Man was working even then. He tilled the land, tilled the garden, irrigated the roots of the trees. It was work. But he was working within the confines and the boundaries that God gave. Just like Satan had a job when he was Lucifer. And he was working within the confines and the boundaries God gave him until he stepped out and decided he wanted to do something different. And that's where sin comes in. All we like sheep turn astray. We turn every man our own way. We turn every man our own way, Isaiah 53:6. We want to do what we want to do. That's all sin is. We want to get out, step out of the boundaries God puts in. This is the boundaries for him. What man was doing, reading about what man was doing in the garden. This was his job description. That he was still working. And he was worshiping God. He had a job. He protected the garden from the birds, the beasts, and the cattle, and gathered its fruit and ate, and put aside the residue for himself and for his wife, and put aside that which was being kept. After the completion of 7 years, which he completed there, 7 years exactly, and in the second month of the seventh day of the month, the serpent came. Now, this is very important. There's things about to change. And after the completion of the 7 years which he had completed there, and here we go with that 7. 7 is the number of completion. 7 years exactly, in the second month, on the seventh day of the month. The serpent came and approached the woman. And the serpent said unto the woman, Hath God commanded you, saying, Ye shall not eat of the tree of the garden? Here he comes with the question, sowing doubt. Of course God said. God told Adam and he told her. And she said to it, Eat but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden. God hath said unto us, Ye shall not eat thereof, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Now, she making God harsher than he was. God didn't say not to touch. He said not to eat the fruit. You always got to take it to the extreme. And the serpent, so that letting you know she didn't think it was fair. Just for her to add that lie. And he came to the woman because of vanity. You know, he can get to the woman, he'll get to the man. You know, Satan wasn't stupid. Serpent wasn't stupid. He knew simple Adam, if he came to him, he would have told him, beat it, serpent. God said, don't eat the fruit. So he was going 2 for 1. He already knew. Get the 1, you got the 2. Ye shall not eat thereof, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. And man been dying ever since. There was no death around him. Man was created to live. Even scientists come around to agree with that, finally. Studying genetics. We was created to live forever. We weren't created to die. There's no such thing as death. And so Satan, the trickster, the beguiler, we was already living eternal. We was already gods of this earth, little g's. As long as you recognize the big G. Go ahead. You put us over all this, dominion over everything, the animals, everything. So Satan didn't have anything to offer. He was bankrupt, and he always has been bankrupt. He's still bankrupt. And he's coming with the same lies now. He's tempting men with the same. Why change up? It works. You could be his God yourself. He was already God. Already living forever. As long as we stay within our boundaries in the place God put us in, we would have been living eternally forever in paradise, because we didn't know what anything else was. No death, no hell, none of that. But here come the bankrupt one, the one that lost his estate, and got a date for the lake of fire, him and his boys, trying to take all creation down with him. And he hates man and is jealous of man, created in God's image. That's what caused him to revolt in the first place. Have God commanded you, saying, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Sowing the seed of doubt. And she said, of it, of all the fruit of the tree of the garden, hath he said unto us to eat, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said unto us, ye shall not eat thereof, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die, for God knoweth that in the day that ye shall eat thereof, your eyes will be open. Satan using the same lies, enlightenment, the trick in the synagogue of Satan with the same message right here. The so-called Mason. Same here, right here. For God to know that in the day you shall eat thereof, your eyes will be open. And that's what they believe. They believe that he's the hero in their religion. He's the light bearer. Prometheus, the gave man light, and God wanted to keep us a prisoner and keep us in ignorance. In the Garden of Eden, he turned the Garden of Eden into a prison. See how Satan turns everything around. Same old tricks. Why change up? Why? If it ain't broke, why fix it? That's what he done. Using the same lie. Rehash. God did know that the day you eat thereof, it's appealing to her vanity. Your eyes shall be open, and ye shall be as gods, and ye shall know good and evil. Yeah, that came with the law. God's standard, which we aren't able to keep. That's why Christ had to come. Because you can know it and violate it by disobeying God. You can't keep them precepts. That's why Christ had to come. He was the law incarnate. God just wants you to simply obey him and follow him and trust his word. Man disobeyed him, distrusted him, and been dying ever since. The graveyards is a testament God was right. Satan is a liar and still a liar. Be as gods, and ye shall know good and evil. Knowing good and evil don't give you the power to keep it. That's what the law teaches. Law, you keep it in perfection from birth to death. You can live eternally. That's what the law states. To fall short just one time, a miss as good as a mile. Miss one of them commandments once in your life. And we're born in sin, so it's impossible for you. And Jesus even made it even more crystal clear. The thought is as well as the deed. The thought, you fall short just as well as the deed. If I hate you in my heart, according to Christ, I'm guilty of murder. If I lust after a woman, look on a woman to commit fornication in my heart, I'm just as guilty. I fall short. It all starts in the heart. And out of Jeremiah, I believe it's 17:9 says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, depraved. So we're born with wicked hearts. They don't have the capacity to love or do anything else. Except God gives you the infilling of his Holy Spirit and engraft of his nature. They're changing. It's the only way you're capable of getting into his heaven in eternity. Else you're going to hell. Be as gods, and ye shall know good and evil. And the woman saw the tree, that it was agreeable and pleasant to the eye, and that its fruit was good for food. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And she took thereof and ate. And when she had first covered her shame with fig leaves, she gave thereof to Adam. So she covered her private part. She realized she was naked. And she gave thereof to Adam, and he ate. And his eyes was open. And he saw that he was naked. And he took fig leaves and sewed them together and made an apron for himself. That's where the so-called Masons get this apron. Right. Thinking your own works can save you. No. It symbolizes that apron, your own righteousness. See, Satan outsaid, clever Satan is. Same trick starting from the garden. And when she had covered her shame with the fig leaves, she gave thereof to Adam, and he ate. And his eyes was open, and he saw that he was naked, and he gave the fig leaves, and he took fig leaves and sewed them together and made an apron for himself and covered his shame. And God cursed the serpent and was wroth with it forever. And he said, and he was wroth with the woman. God was pissed. And he was wroth with the woman because she hearkened to the voice of the serpent and did eat. And he said unto her, didn't say nothing about the man. The woman and the serpent said he was pissed off. I shall greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy pain. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and shall return, and thy return shall be unto thy husband, and he will rule over thee. I know some women don't like to hear that, but the man, because of your foremother, Eve, women, that puts you under me. We were created equal, a helpmeet, but because of the fall, rule over means now you're under. That's this critical thing. That's what God said. Don't get bad at me, he said. So if you can't find a man that can rule over you, I know we're living in a day of rebellion and Susan B. Anthony, blah, 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 feminism, but we're talking God's way, not man's way. That's what God said. I'm just reading it to you. You can read it again. You can read in Genesis. It's the Book of Jubilees. Same thing in Genesis. And to Adam also he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of the wife and hast eaten. Oh, excuse me. Let me finish that back with Eve. I'll rewind that. And he was a serpent and did eat. And he said unto her, I shall greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy pains. That's why you have cramps and periods and all that stuff, because of Eve. And pain and childbirth, because of Eve. Bring forth children. Birthing pains and contractions, all. And thy return shall be unto thy husband, and he will rule over thee. And to Adam also he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree. Now he didn't want to be lonely again. He was in love. Adam was in love. So he hearkened to the voice of his wife and disobeyed God. Well, I'm sure he had plenty of ribs, could have took another rib and started over. But Adam, obviously, this was a love story. He loved his wife, so he followed her into hell, basically. He said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy pains, and in sorrow shall thou bring forth. And he said to Adam also, he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I command thee, that thou shouldest not eat of, thereof cursed be the ground for thy sake. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat thy bread in the sweat of thy face. No more going to a fruit tree and just picking the fruit off and eating. Now you got to get out there and work by the sweat of your brow, you men. So if you got a man laying up on the couch that refuses to work by the sweat of his brow and take care of his household, get another man. We're to work by the sweat of our brow. And men, if you got a woman that's a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the house that don't want to be ruled over like God said, get another woman. Now, if you can't be respected as a head and you ain't acting like the head, that's your fault, man. And woman, if you turn to hell in a hell house, and you done cut his gonads off and using them as click-clacks, used to be these toys. We had these two balls on a string that used to bang together. That's what you done turn the man into. Man, you don't have to put up with that. Get the hell out and run for the hills. Your house should be a house of peace, your abode of peace. You don't have to deal with no sea hag nag on a broom running, flying around in the house. And man, and woman, you ain't got to deal with an irresponsible man as you go off to work laying on the couch every day. playing Nintendo or whatever he's doing, drinking a beer or whatever. A lazy man. Responsibility in both parties. That this Agenda 21 is turned upside down in the day's world. For us, with the household relationship, they've been successful at ruining it. The image of what a real man and a woman would be. You should read it here. I didn't write this, I'm just reading. And Adam also, he said, because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife and hast eaten the tree of the woman which I commanded thee. Man, you should be the head and make the final decision. I'm just telling you. Too many of you are pee-whipped and don't know how to put your foot down and say, hey, look, the buck stops at my desk. That's why, like I said, I understand the agenda that's being run on this, the psyops. But I'm just telling you how God had designed us. And because of the fall, this is the way it is. Things were different before the fall. Because of the fall, this is the way it is. This is God's curse. You deal with it. It's like you could put water into the gas tank of a car and try to start it, ain't gonna go nowhere. You put gasoline, which is designed for petrol, it'll fire right up. The same with relationships. People trying to do it every way but God's way. That's why it ain't working out. And I ain't your poster child for a relationship. I'm divorced. I'm single. I'm just telling you what God said, the way it should be. And if the relationship ain't God's way, it ain't gonna work out. Man and woman. Just sorry, this is the way it is. And he made for them coats of, he commanded, where is that? And Adam, he said, because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree which I commanded thee, that thou shouldest not eat thereof, cursed be the ground for thy sake, thorns and thistles, sweat of thy face. We got to work by the sweat of our brow.